Is everyone in the room ready for us to get going?
All right, I'm getting thumbs up.
We're ready.
All right, good morning. So, to all of you in the room, thank you. To all of you online, thank you again for joining us. Really appreciate you all taking time out of your busy schedules. We all know this time of year, everybody's popping busy and the holidays are right around the corner. So, really appreciate you guys taking the time. Some of you may be familiar with this concept. We rolled out the pilot program of this a couple years ago, and then we have spent the last, almost year refining this to really create a program that can meet the needs of local libraries, and the paperwork is way easier now. So, and then of course, not only the needs of the local library and making sure that the library is prepared, but then do what the library does best and serve the community. So.
Let's maybe try to move the microphone just a little bit closer to whoever's speaking. I heard somebody said they couldn't hear. It might be kind of bouncing off of the back of your laptop too.
Is that an improvement?
Some people could hear you.
I've never been accused of talking too softly.
Well, we'll each have our own if you want to put that closer. How about now?
Better or worse? I feel like the eye doctor. One or two?
Okay, somebody who had said that they couldn't really hear you before said it's better. So
Awesome.
thank you.
Copy all. Thank you. All right. So as we jump into this, I'm Joshua Taylor. I'm with Douglas County Emergency Management. I am the EM planner.
Jesse Harris, Northeast Kansas Library System. At least here at Nichols, planning-wise, I've helped with the planning portion of our new director training at Apple, and so we've really incorporated a lot of the emergency planning as well with that. So, and also as we're going throughout this presentation, feel free to speak up if you have questions online or in person. Dan, like Dan said, he's also monitoring the chat, so you can put a question in chat as well. So, but yeah. All right, how did this collaboration occur? Like Joshua said, we had started meeting 2 years ago, but how that came about was I attended the Community Emergency Response Team training here in Lawrence, Kansas in 2023, April, I think. And with the intent of possibly seeing how I could maybe volunteer locally or how, you know, libraries can work with the Community Emergency Response Team. But I discovered that libraries needed to update their plans ASAP. Just from what I learned of what I needed to do just as a, you know, private citizen, I was like, wow, I'm really unprepared. I thought I was a person that really planned ahead with emergencies, and I realized I was way behind. So I reached out to Douglas County Emergency Management. Kate Deneen was meeting up with me 2 years ago, and we created, and with Joshua, we created or came up with the idea of a library mini-cert pilot program. Because I'm so glad that you guys were willing to do that. I just figured it would be kind of one short meeting and that would be all that we had, but it really evolved. But as we were putting that pilot program together, we discovered that there were additional emergency concerns for libraries. One of those things you discover when you're working with other partners, they have different priorities or may not think of the needs that are involved with your organization. So things that were pretty apparent were obviously our print collections, if you have information on your servers, and also high importance on patron privacy and confidentiality. So that was interesting to navigate, how to keep track of who's in your building for safety, but without monitoring who specifically was in your library. So here's photos of that pilot program in Baldwin City. Like I said, this was the pilot program, and we invited people from various service organizations. We had the police chief, scout leaders, superintendent. There were some there from our FEMA region as well, representing. And in having everyone all together in the same room, we were able to discover some issues, and we'll go into that in the next slide. But well, yeah, let's go to the next slide. So lessons learned at Baldwin. Everyone thought they knew what to do in a tornado for their community, and we discovered everyone thought something different. There was the plan was thought that you would go to the school to as a community member. However, only the superintendent had a key. So if that superintendent was out of town, nobody would have access to that building. Two, that building was under construction. Nobody could access it anyway. So that wasn't even an option, even if they wanted it to be. So just, right away, they're like, clearly our community plan is not going to work. So how do we manage that in the future? They didn't resolve it obviously that day, but it was the community as a whole was starting to become aware with key players what needed to be done. The tornado plan for the library was to go into the hallway, but at the end of the hallway was an exit. So that would quickly become a wind tunnel. So it was a terrible place to have people go in an emergency. And the only place to go in the emergency that we could see, in that photo you saw, we were walking around the library kind of discussing hazards. And the bathrooms were really the only option. And to make a note of that, that's just what to do in a pinch, because that's not an actual tornado shelter. It's not built for that. So the library can't advertise like, this is a tornado shelter in an emergency. If you happen to be here, the bathroom is where you go, but that's not some place that you want to go on purpose during a tornado. Something that just happened to do with the library and the director, they were talking about how during a blizzard, they had to go all the way into the library because they didn't bring home the meeting room reservation book. So they didn't know if they had somebody they needed to call to cancel and say that the library was closed. So they could have saved themselves a trip, because when they got there, they realized no one was signed up for that day. But because they didn't have that information with them, they still had to go through the blizzard to get that information. So little things like that, if you can learn from other people's mistakes, I encourage you to do so. It'll save you time and heartache. And we've got a couple Eudora people here. We had a training in Eudora after the training in Baldwin. Much shorter. We condensed, as you've discovered,
Lessons learned.
Yes, trying to make it more condensed and accessible for our libraries. Also, Eudora had a pretty robust emergency plans set in place already, so that was nice. So it was kind of building upon what you guys already had available, and also you were had community partnerships that you were working with, like I know training with the fire department, and also made sure to have connection with the local church next door where you would go in a tornado, and having access to that basement, off hours when somebody's not there, the keypad and things like that. So it was nice to hear that was in place. And we were just discussing how to build upon that, those plans that you already had in place. Here are some photos from Northeast Kansas Library System training. We didn't have it from our original training that we had with Joshua and Kate. I was too excited and didn't take any pictures. So, but we had a training later on with Kate, and also with our local fire department down the way, and had some CPR and AED training. We had just received that AED machine downstairs. I don't know if any of you have seen it. We can, show you on your way out if you have any questions. But we needed training on how to use it, but also CPR. For instance, I know there was a time when I came to work and we had a kid that had crashed his bike outside and needed help, patching his knees up and wait for their parents. So even though we're not a public library, you just never know. Or maybe somebody had, a heart issue or something. And because we have that AED, I believe we're now registered
Yes, you are.
as a location. So if people need one, they know locally that there's one here at this building and what our hours are and things like that. So let's see. I did make a note. I was joking with Joshua. I found out that CPR was exhausting. I know that once you have adrenaline, it'll be a lot easier to do, but that was a takeaway for me. It was like, wow, okay, this is pretty physically involving. So that was kind of funny. But without adrenaline, I'm sure that we'll all do fine in that situation. But I encourage you to set up training with your local fire department to just kind of ease your staff members' minds about what to do in a situation. Also, just great information to have for out and about in the world. But
Really is.
so what do your libraries already possess that makes them a community asset?
And building off of that, like when disaster strikes, where does your community turn? Could your library be that place? If that building's still standing and it has power? Some key points about libraries. They're trusted, accessible hubs with unique assets, usually great staff and the expertise that comes with that. And of course, how many computers do you have? You guys always have technology. You guys are hooked up to the internet. And let's just face it, libraries are kind of sacrosanct. They're a safe space. It's like going to a church. Everybody kind of minds their P's and Q's. Well, I mean, most people do. But besides being a resource hub and a community connector within your local community, think about the disaster scenarios that could play out in your community and how you could leverage what you already have existing for your community's benefit. And of course, we have COOP templates that will tie into this, and those will set you up. Those are continuity of operation plans. I'm going to be referencing those as well as the emergency response plan for that template as well, and MOUs and MOAs. So don't be surprised, I'm going to be throwing acronyms at you. Please slow me down if I need to. But with that COOP template and you fill that out, that is how you get back on your feet to then provide that service to your community. So just like on an airplane, you got to put your oxygen mask on first, or you can help anybody else. So, of course, we all know libraries, they're repositories, but they can also be vital community hubs during times of crisis. And I'm just going to toss it out there. What unique qualities does your library offer that can support your community during a disaster right now? Just right off the top of your head. Come on, who wants to make eye contact with me? All the ships at sea?
We have computers upstairs and downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
How many units?
7.
Okay.
I'm not counting ours, so
Mhm.
that would be 9.
All right. And
And
then,
we also have a basement.
mm-hmm.
There's one door out, and then the bathrooms and the hallway doesn't have any doors.
And in case you guys couldn't hear online, computers, a basement, and what was the other one?
Like if there was a tornado, we have a hallway that doesn't have any doors. Or
A
anything.
hallway that doesn't have
And I guess in
doors
a
or windows.
disaster, I mean, our basement is huge,
Mhm.
so we could move things around and have a place for people to.
As a meeting space for people to gather. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Exactly.
Sandy from North Central mentioned the Wi-Fi that is accessible indoors and outside as well.
Mm-hmm. And that is huge in a disaster. Do you have power? Do you have internet? Because as we all know, everything's tied to the internet these days. Just filling out your FEMA forms post-disaster to get any kind of assistance, you have to be able to get online. So, and you guys can be that center point just with what you have right now. So let's dive into this a little bit more about how your local library can be a community's safe space.
So we just wanted to make
Yes.
a couple points about libraries as safe spaces. Just something to think about, like while we do mean that they're a welcoming space for your community, it's important to know that they are public spaces. So if patrons are confused or concerned about what that means, you can explain what a library is, how it is a public space. For instance, anyone can take photos or film because there are enough people that it's just considered a public place. So, I mean, ideally, I know libraries, if you can, obtaining permission for those photos, especially if you plan to use them for marketing for sure. But, you know, just be mindful of that, because libraries, we're aware of that. But if, you know, if a patron wants to take a photo in the library, they're allowed to. So sometimes that may be concerning for people, if they're, maybe in a dispute or something. And also, we've had a lot of questions of, can police and ICE enter libraries? And they can, because again, it's a public space. So they are able to enter the building, and walk around. And I believe ICE also don't need anything other than a suspicion to detain someone. So that's been a question from our librarians about how to handle that situation. So we can get into that. If you have any questions, feel free to email or talk to us. But we just wanted to make a clarification on safe spaces, because some people may or may not think of it as a sanctuary in a way. So just kind of clarifying what that means.
All right. So let's dig a little bit deeper into these attributes that make you all so very special and indispensable during a crisis. So again, libraries are in a unique position as a nonpartisan accessible space that has the potential to fill roles within your community that may otherwise not be available during a crisis. And then this is where, you know, I'm going to toss out the MOU and MOA templates. If it's not in writing, it's not happening. So libraries, your accessibility reaches underserved groups. We all know this, and especially this is critical during a disaster when gaps in service can widen across the community. Again, I mentioned your infrastructure. You got computers, Wi-Fi, meeting rooms. You know, you support the practical needs like communication and coordination during a disaster with what you already have in place. For someone like us, we would be looking at that as, hey, we can make this into a resource center. So you're already a resource center. You're already doing the thing. But we could just bring in, hey, this is the other resources and information that people need, and you can guide them to it. And of course, you guys are trusted. In a community, I mean, you got the latchkey kids. Parents trust you automatically. Like, yeah, go to the library. And with that, it makes you all natural hubs for recovery efforts and distributing information, and even if we make it into a point of distribution for aid. Nobody's going to get into a fistfight in the library parking lot. Hopefully. It's not Golden Corral. So a real world case of this is we all remember the hurricane down Harvey that hit Houston. The public library post-hurricane provided Wi-Fi and FEMA application support. Same thing you all could do as well. So thinking about the attributes of your library, central location, etc. How could this possibly enhance the capability or role during a community stress or disaster? Okay, you're making eye contact with me. How could you guys in your community take some of that tension out during a community disaster that has everybody maxed? And just think about what you already do. People are already maxed going to work every day. So
I think that if there was a, you know, a disaster or tornado in part of the town, and the kids, if parents needed a space, needed to go, the kids could come, and we have the basement now has toys and, you know, not just books, so there would be something to take their mind off if we were still standing.
Yeah. So having a location for parents to possibly bring their kids or even come with their kids, if there was like a tornado or something elsewhere in the town and the library was fine, of a place for them to come and kind of get away, and toys to play with and things like
So
that.
even if we didn't have the internet going, there was still something.
Yeah.
there's still
Yeah.
something. Exactly. I mean, remember that time before the internet? I do.
Yes, I do.
All right. So, understanding your community. You probably already engage in these activities. You know your community, you know your town, you know your people. Some of us that come from small towns, we know everybody. already. So, but who are your users? Who's coming in every day? So naturally, probably already doing this, mapping your patron demographics, seniors, youth, local clubs, and then tailor your disaster services around those groups. So you're probably already offering this. Just mentioned children going down the basement, not childcare per se, but you're already doing story hour. People are already dropping kids off. So adjust some of those times, see what your staff can handle, maybe operate a little longer, some of those things. And then of course, usage patterns. What kind of meeting spaces do you all have for community groups? Taking a look at your computers, what people are using the computers primarily for. Are they looking for jobs? Are they looking for X, Y, or Z? And then of course, maximizing that space and thinking about even the teenagers. We like to think about under 13, but during a disaster, you will have roving bands of teenagers with nothing better to do. And we all know how this works. And then this is a great chance to also take a look at your emergency plan and response template and get that filled out and emphasize to your staff the services that you're trying to provide to match those community needs.
Oops, sorry.
I had a note on there, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yes. Like we said, libraries should already be mapping these demographics and also when people will be entering your library. I know one thing that we talked about at Baldwin, and I'm sure is very common in most of your libraries, after school, where do the kids come? They come to the library. So there's a time of day where you know kids will be showing up at your library. And in Kansas, that tends to also coincide with when tornadoes tend to occur. It's usually in the afternoon. And so if your library is not able to be a tornado shelter, that might be something you want to share with your community in advance. So they know like, hey, we're not built for that. So maybe on days like this, kind of have a plan in mind of maybe somewhere else that you might want to be. And also just knowing that there may be people that won't plan ahead and you just will have kids at your library. So kind of like if it's a stormy day, keep an eye out of who's in your library. But again, that's just, you've been mapping the patterns of who would be in your library and kind of like an age range and things like that. So.
And of course, since I like paperwork, you can always take your local patron profiles, make a checklist, age, groups, needs, usage, and help tie that in to guide your planning. So, how do we go ahead and just leverage these assets that we've been talking about? Go through, create a list of everything you have, every space, all your tech, staff expertise. Like I know, Brenda over here can do X, Y, and Z. Tim can do A, B, and C. Then you can maneuver your staff accordingly with that expertise, depending on the nature of the disaster event, etc., to use your resources more effectively and streamline that with local efforts. And of course, good example of this, another library that has utilized its children's section as a daycare, as we talked about, after a local disaster. I do believe it was a flood. And they were able to...
Hello.
Oh, yes, hello.
Is there no question?
I don't think there is.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that was just a hot mic.
But continuing with this, thinking about your assets, These assets can be powerful, but partnerships, who are your partners? And how can you amplify your partnerships and your local library during a disaster? So develop a contact list of partners aligned with your continuity of operation plan template and using specifically your external support team table. So you can go ahead and put those names, phone numbers in, and foster more of that collaboration within your community. It's important to collaborate just in life in general, but aligning this continuity of operations template with your MOUs and MOAs, roles and responsibilities, can strengthen not only your recovery, but also your position to help others recover. Again, put your mask on first. So think about some of your traditional partners in town. Fire, police, schools. Do you all hang out on a regular basis? Coffee? Do you even know who to call? So, I mean, they can provide expertise and resources and bring that to the table and help also with your development of your plan. And then they will also know, oh, you guys are now a player in this potential scenario. And it brings you more into that fold. So, non-traditional partners, restaurants, scout troops. What's the local restaurant that everybody likes to go to for lunch? Might be somebody worth talking to as well. Some success stories post disaster. Well, the library partnered with a local cafe. The cafe still had power, but they needed to provide meals, and they were able to do so during an outage that affected the other part of the town. And people would show to the library, kind of like what they do with the library here, where they hand out meals during the summers. Yep, everybody came to the library and got dinner. And the library was able to be that space. And because they made that partnership with a local restaurant, who was more than happy to go ahead and still push meals out the door.
Is there also potential to find out who you already are partnered with, maybe you don't even know it? Like they put you on their emergency plan, I found that out. That
Yeah.
Lots of places, schools, other places already put us on their emergency plan.
Yep.
Didn't exactly talk to us about it first, that's fine. But find out.
It kind of happens. One of the things, and this is where it gets back to the MOUs and MOAs. It's not in writing, it's not official, because it seems like everybody was just doing handshakes and, oh yeah, you got us. Then that person left. And then nobody knew that handshake happened. So if it's not in writing, it's not going to happen.
I found all these places had it in writing for theirs, they just didn't tell us. And I've been there 25 years and they didn't tell us.
Well, somewhere somebody gave them a handshake and they were like, oh yeah, we're good.
They assume sometimes, so you have to watch out, I mean, be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we all know how assuming works.
And that's a good point, the continued conversation, rather than setting it and then forgetting it, and then 20 years later, here we are. I know the example shared with Douglas County was in an emergency, all the service organizations assumed if they had to relocate, they would go to the fairgrounds, but there's no way that can hold everyone. So discovering that, it's like, okay, if all of our backup plans are the exact same one, we should probably kind of divide this around town of places that we could make that actually feasible. So,
Exactly. And you'll get into that as well for the library itself in your continuity of operations plan. Where would you go if your facility was in op? Where would you set back up and try to reconstitute yourself to a level where you could still be supportive while your main facility got back up and running? So you could continue to do the work that you do every day already for your community, just in, location B, because our facility was damaged. I take it you're thinking about location B.
We are, yes.
It never hurts to also have possibility of option C as well. Like if this, then this. So I'm going to toss a question out to y'all. Who's one non-traditional partner in your community you could approach. You can yell it out, you can write it down. Ships at sea, you can write it down or holler at us.
One for Baldwin was that, like I said, the scout leaders, they paired with them for offering training to patrons, like different survival trainings. But then, because of that partnership, Baldwin needed help with their 1,000 crane project. And so they were able to call in that scout troop, and they were able to help finish that project because it had gotten behind. So it was something they hadn't anticipated, other than they thought it was just going to be emergency management type collaboration, but it led to other partnerships, which was kind of cool. So how about you guys? Is there anything like that you already work with?
Apartment associations, they have their groups where they, or landlords or such, talk to them and see. Our library is surrounded by a lot of apartments and other things, so talking to them.
Yeah, that's one I hadn't considered. If you guys didn't hear online, landlords, was it an association or just the local landlord association? So that's, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's very important.
And other professional groups that are out there, like there's for maintenance, they have their own professional groups, all the different ones, and they usually meet at your library a lot of times. So
Yeah, yeah,
you just go into their meeting and actually talk to them then sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Look at the meetings you actually have at your library and say, hey, how can we partner with those? They're already coming here.
yeah.
Exactly. You already get to know the names, the faces, and they're getting to know you as well.
Yeah, that's smart time utilization too. If they're already there and you're there, might as well pop in and say, hey, so.
It's like having a captive audience.
Yeah, yeah.
You're using my space, you can't leave, you gotta talk to me.
It's a public meeting, so.
Yep,
Exactly.
yep.
So again, with your daily operations, how can you leverage those to become that disaster asset for your local community? So we had talked about expanding children's story time to include extended hours. Collaborating with childcare providers is always an option to support displaced families. You guys probably have a running list of some of the different providers because they come and also use the library. Probably have a good idea what group's coming in. So, and of course, you can connect those routine functions to disaster response, aligning with your continuity of operations plan, essential functions, and of course, your emergency plan recovery focus section. So, as we mentioned, story time, computer access, and of course, with forms, I know this kind of gets a little hinky come tax time for you all. And with FEMA, you all get just-in-time training. They're not gonna, and you're not filling out forms, you're just assisting, kind of very similar into that. Please explain that more. I noticed that was interesting when you mentioned that with the taxes.
Let's see, which part?
It's a similar process you had with the rules with tax forms.
Oh, yes. So how we're not allowed to help a patron fill out the tax forms is similar to like, we're not lawyers, we can't answer legal questions. We can show them where to get to that form, but once they get to that form, it's kind of on them to fill it out. But it sounds like the volunteers are trained to help. Is that correct?
They get a little bit more training to kind of help navigate, but
Okay.
not filling nothing out.
Okay, so same situation. They
Same
cannot fill it out.
situation.
Okay,
But
yeah, so.
you can at least go, click here. Fill your name in there.
So yeah, kind of like how, like you had said, the experience that you have with during tax season, the fun of being like, I'm sorry, I can't help you fill out your form, but I am here to help you get to that website and make sure your computer is working and providing a bathroom. But yeah, so just something to remember, even, you're wanting to be helpful, but just don't cross that line.
Yes. And then, of course, that's critical. Helping patrons navigate these things during a disaster because they're already stressed. They don't know which ends up, if they've lost their house, etc. And what you do every day, just helping, guiding people to resources, that can be leveraged and be a huge benefit to your local community. Another fun example of how libraries have helped out after a major disaster, you usually have an economic fallout. Businesses are destroyed, people trying to get back on their feet, apply for services, aid, etc. Again, they got the Wi-Fi going back at the library, and everybody was able to come in and use the library as a economic recovery hub and resource center. Everybody was able to come in and get online, apply for jobs, apply for aid, different services, that social service net that we have, they were able to fill out those forms. So that is another thing post-disaster. You think about the economics, you think about how that struggle can happen. Libraries can be that space that can make life a little bit easier for everyone and provide that service and help that people need during those times.
I've got a question. I think it fits into this part, and maybe you'll get to it later, so feel free to let me know. Just all this talk about trust and the situation people are in after an emergency, and it makes me think about scams and predatory.
Yes.
Will you talk about that at some point, or is there somewhere that librarians might want to be looking in advance so they're kind of aware of things that
I do know, I
best
don't
practices?
have it in this presentation, but I can send it out. I received an IRS training. It was a quick fact sheet on scams after a disaster, because you're right, that is a problem.
It is.
People, there's just a lot of people coming out of the woodwork, and you may not know who to trust. So we know, go through emergency management, like that's rule one, like always go through emergency management. They'll tell you
Yes.
where to go.
Talk to your local EM for your county. Talk to your local sheriff's department. They usually keep tabs on scams going through as well. And then, of course, your local fire and police. These are all your partners and the individuals that can bring resources to, as you can bring resources to them. So these are your not only your natural partners, but the people you should be talking with well before any disaster event, because they can set you up for success just as you are setting them up for success. That's the biggest thing here. And what we've had from our conversations is, in our world, we're always looking for a space. Like, where can we send people? Where can we set up shop? How do we do this? How do we do that within a community and other people's buildings and facilities? So already having that line of communication and just knowing, hey, I can go there and I can send people there. I can already get the ball rolling well ahead of an actual incident. Or I know the incident's going to happen. I can already have that moving and already have phone calls into your staff, your facility, and be like, hey, this is what you said in the MOU. You're happy to be a resource center. I would like to call that chip in, and let's get an MOA signed. And I'm going to start moving resources there. Can you have your people there as well? So people will be coming.
Yeah, I know, like I said about that IRS scam fact sheet, like I said, I'll share that, but I do get those pretty often. I know the ABOS listserv, Association of Bookmobile and Outreach Services, there's somebody from the IRS that posts on there regularly, and it's usually right after a disaster, just so people aren't forgetting, or, that maybe someone just, you don't think about it until it's you. That's unfortunate, but sometimes that happens. Sometimes people just, it's on the back burner because you're busy with other things. So that does happen regularly. So I'll try to stay on top of it. I just don't know how often that changes. So I don't know if we'll have a static link posted. We'll see what we can do, what would be best for that. But I can start sharing those out as just reminders, just forwarding those emails for those of you that aren't on that listserv. But if you wanted to be on that one's pretty great. That's usually where I see that posted. So.
And this may sound a little redundant, but let's talk more about childcare.
So I know you probably won't have a child care policy, but you do have unattended child policies and behavior policies and things like that. But it's important to note that libraries do not act in loco parentis, which means we are not the parents of these children. We don't behave like the parents, like how teachers are during the day. The parents come with the children, they supervise their own children, and then like I said, you have unattended child policies that you've decided what the appropriate age could be for a child to be at the library on their own. However, in an emergency, it's possible that you might have contracted with a local child care service or agency or something like that that knows that could come and maybe provide some temporary child care. But it would be important to have your policies posted so people know like the library does not act in loco parentis, but this daycare is managing the situation. And you could talk to the daycare because they would know more about how that works. Because, you already probably experienced that to some degree where a daycare comes to your story time or, they go to the pool. So they have situations where they are in charge of these children offsite. So you can talk to them about how they handle that, but just make it clear that the library is not the one responsible. However, you could have, story time and things like that. And as long as it's, the unattended child policy, that would still apply. So,
But with everything, memorandum of understanding.
yes.
Have your paperwork in order. The do's, the don'ts, the roles, the responsibilities, who's doing what, and how this is going to work.
Yeah, especially if you're advertising that you're providing childcare specifically, like in that way, definitely make sure that it's with childcare and that they, have walked you through the responsibilities of how they will handle that. So you'll just be providing like the meeting room space in that situation. So when disaster strikes, how do we activate these assets that we discussed?
So, of course, coordinating with your partners to align with library services within your community's needs and scope. The immediate response steps should align with your emergency response plan in that template. And of course, it's a template. You can tweak it. Not going to hurt my feelings. And of course, beyond those emergency procedures, your continuity of operations plan communications section. So, of course, we want to prioritize safety and make sure that we have the protocols in place for evacuations and utility checks. Nothing worse than a gas leak. And of course, to activate those resources, like your computers, your meeting room spaces, to support the community. And then, of course, you have a whole different social media and partner network, potentially. Other people look at your Facebook that ain't looking at my Facebook. So when I'm calling from the Emergency Operations Center and asking, hey, can I use your facility? You can post, everybody come here. This time we're going to be up and running. This is now the resource hub for name your county or your town. And you'll hit people we don't with our social media. So with that thought, what's one communication channel your library could use in a crisis?
Well, you just said our website,
Yep.
our Facebook site.
I was given hints all through here.
And also something to consider, I didn't realize until I had taken CERT, was thinking about how in an emergency, usually you don't have cell service because it's being flooded with everyone trying to figure out what's going on or contacting their family. And that just happens when there's just a large amount of people in one area as well.
Exactly.
Like, that's not a technical emergency, like, or one that you would think of as an emergency, but, we talked about like the Final Four and stuff like that.
That was an emergency.
So yeah, so technically, like it's a celebration, you may not think of it in that way, but it's still a lot of people in one space, and then the cell service was,
It was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
We couldn't get a phone call or a text message in or out of Mass Street unless you were on FirstNet. So we were able to communicate, and we all went to our radios. Do you guys have radios? Do you know somebody with a radio? Where's your ham club? Who's your local ham?
and I was thinking, oh, I'll just use our office Slack if I need to. But if cell service is overwhelmed, and that's how I'm getting my internet is through my cell service, that would also not work. And I was like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. Until you kind of walk through what it is you actually specifically need to make that work, you kind of start to realize, oh, we're pretty reliant on that.
Yeah, I mean, the good old days of the phone was hanging on the wall, and you could pretty much always get a phone call through. Not so much anymore. So yeah, be thinking about those different methods of getting information out to your staff, to the populace, and what that looks like from your perspective. And as noted, ensure you have a hard copy of that at home so you don't have to go back in and try to find your call list and who's renting what space during a blizzard. So, of course, Activation requires practical planning. Let's kind of jump in and explore a little bit more about this. So engage your partners to address your logistical challenges, resource allocation, volunteer coordination. You probably have some of your own volunteer corps, and you, of course, have your own resources, not only within your community, within your library, but then think around your county at the other libraries. What resources do they have? What agreements? What sharing? I mean, you guys already share books. What else can you share? And then adapt those daily protocols that you have for crisis and align it with your emergency, your plan and response. So, really easy to adjust hours to meet recovery needs, extended evening access, training your staff for emergency roles per your continuity of operations plan and incident management team. And of course, your plan for utilities. Do you have a backup generator? Are you currently set up where somebody could bring one? So, I mean, I know a backup Jenny is not cheap, but do you have the electrical for your facility already set where somebody could come and plug a generator in and power most of your facility? Because that's one thing, if you hollered at me and you're like, yeah, you can use my space, but I need a generator, I'm gonna find you a generator. They exist, they're out there, I can borrow them. And that's when you having those connections with your local emergency manager with your local police, fire, and the safety resources that you have there, somebody's gonna find you a generator. Public Works has them, you know? They'll be like, okay. You'll open your doors, your staff can come in, we're gonna set you up and get you fired up, because you're gonna be one of our primary points for recovery. Building those partnerships, crucial. We can bring resources, you have resources, and now we're not duplicating resources. I don't have to go find 7 computers. I know where 7 computers are. All I have to do is just make sure you have power.
And make sure you have a hookup, like we said, for that power.
Exactly.
And also make sure if you do have a generator, you have a plan with a local diesel or whatever it runs on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Keep
Yeah.
coming, put you on their priority list. If you're not on their priority list, they're just gonna.
And most of your county entities, your departments and agencies, they already have agreements set up with, like, we're set up with Pinnacle Propane. So I have a generator for my emergency management trailer that we take out to the field. They'll come out and they'll give me more, I got a tri-fuel generator. They'll bring me gas. So,
Something to keep in mind if you get a generator is theft of the generator. I lived in Springfield, Missouri when they were hit by a really bad ice storm. The whole city was without power for a couple of weeks. And they were powering the major stoplights with generators, but they had police officers that were having to sit at those generators because people were trying to take them.
yeah, that's the unfortunate reality. Let's, hope for the best. And hopefully nobody takes our generators.
But that's a good point. I mean,
It
that's
is.
something to prepare for.
And that's something that, knowing your own community and the people in it, you can get a pretty good gauge of, is the generator gonna go walking? And just prepare accordingly.
Yeah. And yeah, length of disaster and desperation and things like that.
Exactly. Because as we all know, during any kind of large-scale event, people get a little bit more desperate the longer it drags out. And that's where our partnership can help alleviate some of that. Because then we're not duplicating resources. We have a resource center and a point of distribution set up within a community with all of you. And then we can leverage what you have and what we have and maximize it without overlapping and, doing the same thing twice and putting it all on just one person.
And also testing that, the generator, see how long it will last for you, depending on what kind you get or what you already have.
Mm-hmm.
And then how often you're gonna need, and also maybe informing staff, hey, don't use the elevator unless you have to. 'Cause
Yep.
Mhm.
This one's on, but this one's not. And this is what, these are the outlets that actually are marked that will work during that time.
Yep. Yeah.
And also, if you want to have clean, dirty power during the clean power is the dirty power during that time, because you can ruin all your computers switching over or using a generator, so.
No. Yeah.
Yep. So make a partnership with your local electrician. And then with that also, when you think about what Evergy does coming in, getting the power lines back up, et cetera, just like with nursing homes, they're considered a priority. We try to get the power on for those sensitive sites first. Hey, let's make the library into one of those sensitive sites. We need to get the power on first here because we are using this facility as a recovery point. We need power on as soon as possible. And that is a conversation you can have with your local emergency manager, to have that conversation with the power provider to make those points. Because we call them when there's power outages that do happen, and nursing homes are impacted, some of those that critical infrastructure. Yeah, we're calling up Evergy. We're, hey, we got a problem. We need that back on pretty quick. What is that estimated time? What are we looking at? What do we need to engage in? Do we need to start moving people to get them to a place with power right off the bat, or is this going to kick on in 30 minutes? Do we just got to make things comfortable? So that is how you become part of that critical infrastructure for a community, even though you already are. But this makes the conversation and develops you more into that thought process of critical infrastructure. I see the wheels turning. You got a question? Okay.
Planning. Yeah.
And also some places can look into, we used it for a while, but we got away from it. There's actually companies that actually provide you all this stuff too, if you want to pay for it, like an insurance, but they'll bring in they'll bring in a generator, they'll bring in the computers, they'll give you an off-site, they'll do all that stuff. So some people, peace of mind just to have that, I mean, and they put you on a priority list and all those things, so. There are services like that if you want something, look into that as well.
Well, and you know, you're in your local town where your library's at. Who do you know? Who do you already know? It's like, hey, Jim down the road, he's got a generator. Wonder if I could holler at Jim and he'd bring it in. And then you guys would already be up and running, and then that's one less generator I have to find. You guys already found a generator? Awesome. Okay. Do you need fuel? I'll get you fuel. All right. And of course, with all this, we probably should clarify work and volunteer hours.
Yes. Just as a reminder, library staff cannot volunteer for the library. So if the library is a space where emergency management is using as like a base to have volunteers help, your staff are more than welcome to volunteer, but it has to be very clear that it's not during their work hours. They cannot be in any way like coerced into volunteering or feel like they can't say no to those volunteer hours. So with your policies, you want to make it very clear that they're welcome to do that, but they are in no way required. And keeping track of like if they're an hourly employee, they still cannot work over 40 hours without being paid overtime. So it doesn't matter that it's a disaster. And I know most of our libraries, they want to volunteer and they're like, oh, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. Well, unfortunately it's illegal. So even though you want to, just know that you can't volunteer for your library if you are working for your library. Your board members they can volunteer their time, and it's the opposite. They cannot be paid for working at the library. So keep that in mind. But if they are volunteering and it just happens to be at the library, they just have to be very clear. They can't be like, oh, I'll check this thing in for this one patron. No, you are not on the clock. You are a patron. Behave as if you're like a patron and you don't have access to that staff library stuff. And ideally maybe even be, I don't know if you'd be wearing a vest or something that would identify you as a volunteer, to make it clear, like, I do not have my library hat on, I have my volunteer hat on. So you're able to do these things. It's just, you want to be very clear about it. Even if someone says, they're like, I would not, come for the library later for these unworked hours. Like, I would never do that to you. You just never know. And also it's just not fair to them either. So, like I said, just one of those things to keep in mind, even though an emergency, is happening. Yeah, keeping track of those volunteer hours too, and the volunteers, so you can send thank yous. So that's kind of a positive reason for keeping track, other than, the practical side of it, to thank them for their time. Yep, and we talked about board members. Sometimes they may or may not be volunteering for your library anyway as coverage. So that could be something they could do. And making it clear what they have the authority to do. If you have somebody volunteering in a library capacity, just be like, you can do these things, but like, you don't have the authority to make certain decisions or whatever. Just kind of clear like what their duties are. And that also was clear during the continuity of operations plan.
Yes.
We'll kind of get into that too, so.
And as much as I don't want to turn down a good volunteer, there will be a lot of hours you're already providing a service. I want you all to keep that in mind and do that self-care as well, because it will be a lot coming in at you. And, you can't work a double shift and then break down, because then we lose you too. So definitely from a leadership perspective, making sure your staff are doing what they need to do for self-care and not trying to double dip too hot and heavy into these extra volunteer hours, so we don't lose that individual from maintaining the services that we need from your facility and you doing all those things that you already do. So, I mean, I know it sounds silly. I never want to give up volunteers because they're unicorns, but I don't want to lose all of you either, because having this taken care of and this angle already off my plate, it's actually quite kind of a relief. That's one less thing I need to be trying to figure out in an emergency operations center and trying to negotiate terms and get resources and do X, Y, and Z. Just one less thing.
All right, so let's start building your plan with these first steps.
All right, my bread and butter. Let's start writing and doing all the paperwork. So you need to get a clear starting point. So aligning with your COOPS incident management and your MOUs and your MOA's purpose. Then use your MOUs and MOA templates to formalize your partnerships. Take the time, brainstorm with your team, and then look at your nearby resources, your community centers, your USDs. What is around you already? Who should you be talking to more and getting agreements set up to bring stuff in? Like, Jim has, the auto shop down the road and a generator. Okay. Maybe I should incorporate that in, have that conversation with him and see if he can bring the generator down. Create a contact list using your continuity of operations emergency contact table. And of course, draft an outline and engage stakeholders for feedback. And of course, those stakeholders, internal, your board, but also who is your local police chief? Who's your sheriff? Who's your local emergency manager? Who's your fire chief? Holler at us. I mean, emergency managers, maybe they're, not a planner, but they fill these functions as well. They'd be more than happy to come have that conversation and help with looking at your plan, reviewing your plan. And having somebody call us is really exciting. You want us to come out and play with you? Awesome. Like, we will show up. I don't know any emergency managers that wouldn't show up, because also you guys have snacks. It's great. So take a look at your MOU and MOA templates, and then use those reference and build those formalized partnerships. Quick question. what are some unique considerations for your community that should be in writing? And things that you should plan for when you're building your plans?
We have some examples while you're thinking about it. So these are some local examples for the Northeast Kansas Library System. So Silver Lake, for example, their police station, fire station, and library are all located right beside the train tracks. And if there was a train derailment, it's possible that all of those service organizations would be taken out at once. So how would that community handle that? It's difficult for them to lean on each other if they're all in a state of emergency. So they would maybe have to reach outside of their local community to rely on their neighbors to get up and running. So that's kind of unique to their location. Is your library in a floodplain? I think the Delaware Township Library, I believe, is one of our libraries that happens to be in a floodplain. So, and flash flooding is becoming more of a problem just across the board. But if you're in a floodplain, you're especially vulnerable. Does your neighborhood have a factory that contains hazardous chemicals, or any sort of business or organization that may have those hazardous chemicals? We talked about, wasn't it I'm trying to think of what we were talking about. The grain silos usually pose a hazard.
And your local emergency manager, we have knowledge and a list of all the tier 2 facilities. So you can call up your local emergency manager and be like, what kind of things do we have in the vicinity that I should be concerned about? But yes, with the grain elevators, you typically have anhydrous tanks in there. That could be a fun one.
Another example of what if children have to cross the highway to reach your library from the school? So do you have kids trying to cross dangerous roads trying to make it to your library? I know that is a case in the Meriden Ozaki Library, at least for the kids in Meriden. And then also tough for Ozaki just to get to the town, like how does that happen if you're a township library or something where people have to come? Or a countywide, I know Shawnee County Library, it may be tough for some people to get in there. So what are your specific needs of your community? And there was an example, I watched an emergency management training where a museum had a fire hydrant just outside of their library, and they're like, great, awesome, in an emergency, we have a fire hydrant. Unfortunately, somebody with their car ran into it, and then their building flooded because all of that water just ran into their building. So they had to put up, cement blockers near it, so the next time a car hits it, hopefully not, but if so, not going to have that same issue. So sometimes it's even the little things. You're like, how could this become an emergency in my immediate vicinity? And yep, so let's, if we wanted to move to the next step, we would involve first responders to refine your plan.
Yes, so as I mentioned, bringing in those other people to review your plan, invite the fire, police, emergency managers to review it. Make sure that we've already started off aligning with FEMA's resources, ready.gov. I've already kind of set it up, so you guys are set up for success, don't worry. The template's got you. And then, of course, get feedback from not only your local safety and responders, but your local community. Because they're going to have a lot of questions, and they may have some other things that you haven't thought about that's specific and unique to your community. That would be something additional that would be needed based on X, Y, or Z. And it really builds trust. You're already trusted, but that transparency, that coordination, that development of partnerships builds trust not only in the library, the leadership, the staff, but it builds trust with the public and the responders. We know you got us, and then we have you now. We can support you because all we're doing is adding bricks to that structure. And then the public can see, and it builds that trust all the way around. That they know things will be handled, and they have somewhere to go.
Also, Homeland Security will come in and do a security assessment of your facility if you want that as well. That should be part of your emergency procedures as well, as far as any of those type of things that happen.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And that's part of the templates as well. We often think of natural disasters, but there's a lot of man-made issues as well, so.
And you'll see the CISA stuff for like bomb threats, et cetera. That is also in the template. And you can print that off, laminate it, and put a copy of that by every phone in your facility. Not a bad idea. There you go. You're ready.
That's my job.
So let's take a look at your partner network, how that expands. So, of course, create a draft plan incorporating your stakeholder feedback and share it with potential partners. And engage new partners with this plan. Schools, scouts, some of your users, some of the natural partners that you can think of. And then some of you may have already volunteers for the library. Leverage those volunteers for tasks like distributing supplies and different materials. And then, again, with the MOUs, MOAs, formalize those agreements. Get everything in writing, put them on file. Quick question. What's one volunteer group you could involve in your plan right now?
The scouts meet at our library.
So you guys, we would have our volunteers, our CERT team, but you could turn around, activate a whole nother layer of volunteers, and they could be distributing materials, which means then I don't have to have 6 volunteers at your facility just to unload supplies. You have your own core right there. I can then send those people to go do something else, damage assessments, etc. All things we have to do. So now we've just increased our manpower capability, and you're still doing all the same beautiful things you're already doing.
Was there someone online, Dan?
Yeah,
yes.
Sarah mentioned the Rotary group.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
I wonder if you could put that on when people reserve rooms and such, you could put something together where you could put something out there and say, would you ever be interested in volunteering or providing, do you have any resources that, in order to make sure that we are always a resource for you, always available, anything that, ask them, we're providing a service for you, is there a service in the future maybe you could provide for us if we have an issue? I was just.
Yeah, turns out Jim at the auto body shop is part of the Rotary. He's like, yes, I will bring my generator.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. That's the way this should work.
Yeah, I mean, put it as, maybe as a questionnaire that people can fill out if they want to on
Yeah.
a journal room or something. and
Little
provide
QR code, little survey monkey,
Yeah.
Google Doc,
Yep.
super simple. You guys already do that now, so I mean,
Yeah.
again, just doing the natural
Yep.
things
Yep.
that you already do.
No, that's a great point, especially about when reserving the meeting rooms, because that is probably, especially the groups as a whole, when you would be seeing them, so that's a great idea.
So now that you have formulated a list of partners, have a good idea, let's go ahead and finalize this plan. So, of course, ensure the plan is actionable and community specific, aligning with your continuity of operations, test training, exercise section. And of course, your emergency plans maintenance section. And test it out, or host an annual disaster preparedness day with local experts and interactive activities. Again, you guys are some of the most creative folks, and you always have snacks. Invite us. We will show up. People will show up. Fire, law enforcement, all of us. We will come out of the woodwork, and we will engage, and we would be happy to engage with everybody that comes out and use the space and talk through these things and go through the plan and, hey, this is what it would look like in a disaster. This is what you can expect from us. This is our plans. And have that conversation with the community as a whole. You know, just coffee hour. I know there, some libraries do like little morning time, and people come in from the community and just have a chit chat with somebody that does X, Y, or Z, but you know, maybe it's from the extension office or something like that. It's just like morning coffee hour kind of thing. And they just have a normal conversation. That nothing different here. Except this would be like, hey, when bad things happen. So, what's one fun way to make disaster drills engaging in your community?
Because when you're doing your disaster drills, you are involving your patrons. So that's a fun extra layer.
Mhm.
So how do you get them to be enthusiastic or at least cooperative, I suppose, for your, do you have one?
Yeah, just something I thought of.
Yeah.
I always see touch a truck things going on in libraries during summer reading programs. So I think that would be a fun way to tie it in since you have everybody there anyways.
Yeah. Why not
Yeah.
kill two birds, one stone?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Another, I know people mentioned like having raffles for those that, or even just little prizes for everyone there that participated, making it an event on purpose. Like, this is what the event is for today. We are going to be doing these drills. So that, and you know, advertising them in advance. So that way, if people really don't want to be involved, they can just not go to the library that day if possible. I know that there, you know, some people just, they have certain needs and they're like, I need to be in the library this day to fill out this application, and that's the way it is. But, you know, your drills aren't going to be all day. So just make it clear, like, sorry, this is what we have to do for community safety, and everyone needs to participate because you are, even though it's a drill, you're treating it as if it's real, so.
And you can align it with other events that are already happening. We already do the statewide tornado drill every spring. You guys just participate in it as well at your facility. I mean, I'll be in my office pushing the button, sounding the sirens, and doing it like a full operation for the real world. And you guys have that same opportunity to do it too. So there's already events that go on. There's already preparedness months. Just always have the opportunity to jump on board.
Do you all recommend not tying this in or do recommend tying it into like active shooter type training?
Oh yeah, and you can get that training as well. Of course, contact your local sheriff. Our sheriff will, they have a gentleman that will come out and go through it with you and provide that training.
Would you recommend having that as a separate group of policies or just having that tied into emergency planning in general?
So it's one of those, what's your bandwidth? If you want to have the annexes be a little bit more robust and be kind of separated even from your normal plan, you can. You can adjust the template to however works best for you. It's streamlined and all integrated in right now. But you can break it out.
Okay.
If that seems to be something that you're more worried about for your community and you want to invest in that section and make it more robust, do it.
And are you kind of talking about like, is it safe to have those plans public? Is that kind of?
Well, no, I just didn't know if your template included it. It sounds like it's all already there.
I
Yeah.
treated it like Walmart. It's a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
So, talking about resources that can help you build this plan. Here's some fun places to take a look at. Of course, FEMA'sready.gov. You have disaster planning handbook for libraries out there. So there is a framework. There is already some thought behind this and information that will help you as you build your plans and develop more into what you need and what your community needs. So what's one resource you'll explore after this meeting?
This is also a, quick list. There's tons of resources out there. So if you have specific things that you want to, dive into, let us know. But these are a good place to get started if you haven't. So aside from the, the templates that we'll be providing today, and those are also posted on the Kansas Library, Regional Library's website, and we'll share that link as well. So.
And because I can't harp on it enough, formal agreements. Draft an MOU or an MOA with your key partners as soon as you get this plan put together. And in those templates, and it's good to understand as well, a memorandum of understanding is not legally binding. You're saying, hey, I could offer this space during a disaster. So I would have your MOU on file. I would pull it out and be like, hey, can I now sign an MOA with you so that I can use your facility for this amount of time? And that should be the same for all of you as well. So you would have an MOU with another facility or another group for different resources. The next step is like, hey, I want to go ahead and activate this MOU. Then you move into your MOA, and that's where the legalese comes in. So MOU does not put you on the hook. It just says, I'm an option. The MOA puts you on the hook. Mm-hmm. So paperwork matters. Ask any attorney.
And even just like a simple example of that is you said, say you had signed an MOA in advance rather than an MOU, and you're like, I can provide 10 computers, but for whatever reason, 5 of those laptops went out the week before for any given reason. You're not having to source another 5 laptops from somewhere else to then provide because you signed an MOA saying that you would do that. I mean, I doubt anyone would be like rigid about that, but they could. So just something to keep in mind. That's why there's that distinction. The MOU is kind of a placeholder, and then the MOA is like, here's what we have today. We know we can provide it, and we will provide it. So.
And then that, your local people, they're not going to throw a huge hissy. I'm pretty sure they'll just be happy you're there and helping. So, good example of MOUs in use is down south. They've had fire department set up an MOU with the local library to be used as a cooling center. And of course, that's something that could be done here as well, because it's not like we're any different than down south now. So, but that's something else a library could provide for their local community if there's nowhere else to go. Only so many people can fit in cases. So, question, what is one role your library could formalize with an MOU in your community?
What's one what? I'm sorry.
One role, one service, one thing you can think right off the top of your head that you could have paperwork put together and provide that for your community. You may already be doing it and not even realize you're doing it. You just don't have the paperwork filled out.
Like an example, like a simple one that just happens informally for us. I know, if a library is not able to receive courier service because there's something going on with their local library for whatever reason, in the past we've had it set up just like, okay, well, the community can go to the next community over. If you're a Next library, this is a Next search catalog because they share a catalog. They can have patrons drop items off there or pick them up at that neighboring library. So that's a pretty simple, easy one. But it can be formalized elsewhere, especially if you're not a sharing catalog, if you're maybe one of the larger libraries or something. So, and that's, that could be in a simple, we had a pipe burst, or we're just reorganizing or something. So it doesn't even have to be a huge community event or disaster, so.
So again, all the templates that I mentioned, you have your library emergency preparedness response and recovery plan, or as we like to call it, the ERP. your continuity of operations, and your MOUs, MOAs.
And before we start to dive into these, so that's what I'm handing out now. We also have, we'll go through them online, we'll pull them up for everyone to see, we'll go through them. If you want to take a quick restroom break or, you know, refresh your coffee, you can just take a couple minutes, and online as well. If you want to take just a couple minutes to get set up, we'll pull up those.
Great.
Dan, I've seen you on the website
Yeah.
before. I was just there a couple weeks ago to do a presentation. Thanks. Yes, definitely remember seeing you on the website.
I'm working on updating this next year. Our flip chart.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys have this at all for your like service
Yeah.
locations?
Yeah, all our phones.
Gotcha.
And then also next year, I'll put out on the app.
Yeah.
We have, all, I mean, like I have, we all have work phones too, so we put them on there.
Right.
This is 13 years.
I got you.
I think it's so long ago. I can
You put me okay. Pretty good run.
Yeah, I mean, I got run out of fighting there back then even, but just having maps, that's the other thing, is just having, it's the locations to have just even the most basic site.
Yeah, well, and you guys have probably changed the interior of that building several times since that was at least.
That's what I was waiting for, because
Yeah.
the site plans that are in here
Yeah.
are, I mean, they're still work, but like we have now, their cafe has an entry point.
Right.
Everything's been moved around, walls been knocked down, I mean, they still look generally the same, but like our gallery, they're really completely different setup now. This is here, this is back here, but, I mean, basics are still there for the most part, so it still works, but.
Yeah.
I did change some of this, and then make it so that every, 5 years or so, we redo it. These all pop out, it's actually a little bit.
Should put on like a elevator music or something for
Another
intermission.
big thing I always find is it's also clear to the audience, clear that you, the daily.
Yeah.
How do you know when the last time, this one's 2012, so yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all of it still works, but I, you know, and then also have a kind of tie these two together. That's exactly easy to do, but yeah. Then also not making it just my job. Right? Next year, what I'm gonna do is I'm finding it, I'm gonna have a committee more so where I'll have every month, I'll have a staff member who's in charge.
Hands are not working.
Helping me do the part, renovating it.
Going too fast or slow as we're scrolling through.
Yeah.
I'll grab the paperwork
The month before last.
up on the front.
We deal with this emergency management. They came in, had them, fire department.
And then the employees.
And I invited all of this department.
Yeah.
But
We ran out of
I have 5
it
officers.
was like, well,
Right.
I know them.
Perfect.
I had them, so we came in, we did training, so they did their general session in the beginning, then in the morning, we shut down the entire building in the morning. Then, we had 3 different sections, we rotated, they went through tours. So we had a fire, do one, we had the police department do another one, and then the emergency management do another one, and then stop and do one.
All right, we're gonna get started here in a minute.
People rotated through, and also they signaled that.
Hopefully everybody online was able to get a water, more coffee.
We're slowly, it was our second time in Venice, we're slowly upping our game every time.
Yeah.
yeah.
I had a question in the chat. I don't know if you want to go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Do you have that pulled up? You might want, it's kind of lengthy.
I can pull that
I
up.
can try to read it.
Let me see. Hold on. Here we are. Here we go. Come on.
Prep box.
There we go. Okay. It says, and is it all right if I share this out loud? I assume, okay. Do you recommend keeping an emergency prep box? If so, do you have a checklist of things that should be in it? I used to work in hospitals and each department had a similar box, but it's been a while and I don't remember all that was in it.
Yes, you should have your boo-boo kit, and you should have even a box for if there's any damage to your materials. So the stuff that you need to preserve wet or damaged books, you should have a kit for that, and you should have your medical kit, and that is in here as well. So you have space in here to build out your kit.
Yep. And I know, depending on your library, like I think Baldwin has a hazmat kit in one spot. Some of the larger libraries have facilities, people on staff that would probably handle that, so they'll let you know how to handle that at those libraries. Another simple example is like downstairs, and I know other libraries, we have what is called a bug tub. So if an item comes in with bed bugs, we can seal it. We've got things in there that we can kind of contain the situation. So you might have various kits. It may not all be in one specific place, but I know that most things can be kept at least fairly close together. So.
But it is definitely a good idea to have multiple kits for all the potential issues you could run into in your facility. Everything from collections to little Timmy skinned his knee. So.
Yeah, because I know some libraries, you may or may not have, like, for example, again, with bed bugs, we have that bug zapper that we can lend out. But you want to have whatever you need to contain the situation till help can arrive, essentially. That's what you want.
All right, so with this template, this is streamlined. We really tried to work this down to make it more digestible and easier on the bandwidth for the users, for all of you. So pretty standard plan language. When you jump into this, you got your introduction and purpose.
Sorry, I'll try to go slow. If I'm making anyone dizzy online, let me know.
Your scope and distribution. Just, what do we do here? What's the point? On page 4, you kind of hop right into, hey, I need to maybe start filling stuff out. So you get into your locations of building utilities. Do you know where the gas shutoff is in your facility? The water shutoff, any of it? So, different emergency systems, different equipment, just gives you a place to start listing stuff out. Where it's at. In there, you got emergency supplies already listed on page 4. Location, disaster supply kits, specify location, contents, first aid kits, flashlight, batteries, plastic sheeting, paper towels, gloves, mask, all the stuff. And again, not gonna hurt my feelings, expand, tweak it to what your facility needs. This is just, just a model, it's a template. Work with it, just gives you a place to start from. Page 5, it's still asking like, hey, communication equipment, radios, phones, public address system, shelters, exits by room or area. Then you get into emergency service contacts. So in your plan, you will have everything written out that somebody could just hop right into. And you could make it real simple and just have a checklist built right off of this. So then you could have a quick reaction checklist for staff that aligns right with this, and they can just start checking the boxes and moving through. Page 6, disaster response team, those contacts and those responsibilities. So you're putting in who's going to do what. Who's in charge of the computers? You don't have to call it a technology coordinator, but whatever that title is, name, what do? They assess damage to technological systems, hardware, software, telecommunications, etc. They decide on recovery strategies and communicate any external technological services, supplies, or equipment needed. So that would be from this plan. And then if I knew that that was who I was supposed to talk to as well, so you would also have that individual like, hey, we need X, Y, or Z extra computers because ours are damaged for this facility to work. I would expect to probably hear that from that person, or that would be the person you would rely on to tell you to tell me. Page 7, you start getting to your salvage priority list. So that's where we include your stuff, your collections.
On these, can they be a board member if they are okay
Yeah.
with it? It doesn't have to be staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you're just keeping in mind those hours and volunteers, like that kind of stuff, as you're making your plan, yeah, whoever in your community is, but keep in mind certain things like, privacy and confidentiality, who has, access to certain things. But yeah.
I was thinking the building, the one that says where the building was damaged. I have a board member that would have to
Yeah.
know what was, what
Yeah.
was-
And if you're the only staff member at that library, you may need to rely on your board, because what if you're out of town or whatever the
Exactly.
situation, so.
And with that also, like when you're putting names in boxes, try not to use the same person too many times, because only one person can be only, so many places at the same time and only wear so many hats. So it's good to have a little bit of spread there. So of course, salvage priorities for your administrative records, different collections, fill that out. I know there is some libraries that have stuff that it's more valuable to the community than anything else. So, don't come in and just hose it down.
Yeah, making clear where your local history collections are, that can't be replaced. Those are probably gonna be your top priority, and your servers as well. Things that can't be replaced. Also knowing what's in it, what the chemical makeup of those items, if there's anything like, if it were to get wet or if it were to bust open, is there anything like, maybe it's something old that has mercury in it, or,
Always an option.
yeah. And also, so emergency services know, or first responders know, this is the priority. Like, if we're gonna salvage anything, we're salvaging this first. This is all covered under our, insurance. We can buy these new books again. We can, start from scratch if we had to with this section, but this needs to be our first priority. So,
And this gives you that space to start having that list and then have that conversation with your local fire department.
also to know like that if anything can be salvaged, to try, some people may think like, oh, it's too far gone. It's just like, not necessarily. Let's be absolutely certain before we're throwing anything out. Like, can we freeze it? Can we recover it in some way, especially if it is that irreplaceable item? It's like, don't, people wanting to help would be like, oh, this is just all wet paper, I'm gonna toss it out. It's like, nope, we are gonna go through everything and see if we can salvage it, so.
Exactly. So, again, you guys, you have stuff in your libraries that you're also the town museum, so just stuff that is irreplaceable. So going through and having that conversation is not uncommon, and it's not an unreasonable ask. It's kind of like Haskell, they have stuff that is not replaceable. And they have had that conversation with us, and we are not spraying hoses on certain things. Just end of story. So you can have those conversations locally too. Page 8, start getting into your emergency procedures. And again, you can tweak the language as you need or see fit, but pretty straightforward, for a fire, if alarms don't sound, you're gonna be calling 911 and announce evacuation. you're probably still gonna be calling 911, even if the alarms do sound, but kind of trying to take the guesswork out of it, because you're smelling smoke. What do I do? Some people panic. Okay? This is in my checklist. I've already been reviewed through this in a staff meeting, etc. I'm just gonna call 911 right off the bat, and I'm gonna announce the evacuation. Just boom, boom. So, try to gear it to take some of the stress out of it, and then give you that room to then build what you need locally to keep that momentum, so that people aren't as panicky if things don't quite work out, because sometimes alarms don't sound, things happen. So even what to say, kind of like with the general evacuation, I put just an announcement for you there. Change it to whatever you need, but
And possibly even having visual aids if you can. There might be patrons that are hard of hearing, or may speak another language. So infographics may also help in certain situations, but you could also just have generic signs of "we need to evacuate" or something, just to have in addition to.
page 9, you get into like medical emergencies, minor, major, flooding, power failures, violence or criminal activity, bomb threat, active shooter. Just real straightforward guide to how you should be moving. And again, expand it as you need. And I'm pretty sure it says in here, but I know there's some acronyms tossed in here. PIC is a person in charge.
Yeah, and I know we're trying to move away from that if we can, but it's good to know what other organizations are going to be using when they're working with you. So even if you're trying to, spell out your acronyms, knowing like if you're working with emergency, like you're probably going to hear PIC a lot, I imagine. So just
Like
knowing.
who's
what
the
they-
person in charge, or POC, who's my point of contact. So you're going to hear different acronyms flying around the room. Page 10 jumps a little bit more into your collections and your salvage, and it gives you some, I wouldn't say watered down, but I streamlined this. So there is so much information when I was researching this. That goes into trying to salvage collections. It's amazing, and hats off to those folks that do it. But so this is kind of a streamlined one, and you can build off of this for what is your priorities.
Yeah, something just to keep in mind is I know it takes, 48 hours for mold to start growing. So just know when your collection gets wet, you have 2 days, and so that's why it's important to have that in advance, because you either need to freeze it or do something with it within that amount of time before mold starts to grow. And that's including your building itself, so.
Page 11 continues on with that, with water damage. Then it goes, page 12, into wet books, leather, books with coated paper. 13 is, we start getting into mold damage collections, computers, microfilm. And again, I tried to streamline this. This is massive. There's so much information on this. It's 14 continues on. And then we get into the salvage supplies. And that's where, like with the question, you would also build your kit and have, like, what do I need to have on hand based on what I have in here for my supplies if something happens to this, to the leather bound books. What do I need to have on hand in my kit, ready to go?
And like you guys mentioned earlier, having it be in that single place of a kit, because even though you may have all these things, if they're scattered about the library, like think about the amount of time it would take for you to find all of those things, and valuable time you don't have time for, so,
You don't.
yeah,
And also where you're gonna take it to,
exactly.
in your
Yep.
facility, if it's on in your facility.
And there's a place for you to note that in there as well. Because it talks about having a designated area that is cool and committed. So, page 15, you start jumping into, who is your facility partner emergency team? So administrators, disaster team leader, critical essential functions and priorities, kind of spell out what everybody's supposed to be doing. Who's in charge, who gets blamed, all the fun stuff, bless you.
Thank you.
And always plan maintenance and testing. So you get this all written up, you're gonna wanna, practice how you play. And see if it actually works for you, for your facility, for your staff. And then go back and tweak it some more if you need to.
They could be simple things. We discovered during one tornado that occurred, we were doom scrolling on our phone. We're like, you know what? Next time we're gonna have a deck of cards. We're gonna have something to occupy ourselves. And just a simple change, while that wasn't necessarily. We also had to walk through and changed our location, which was helpful. So our original plan, while in a basement, still had windows, so it would have been really dangerous. So now our updated is our bathrooms here on site. So little things, but yeah, we found that was interesting with the cards. We were like, we need something to do.
Page 18, intentionally left blank. It's where you start hopping into the appendices. So 19, you start listing out staff contacts, and then you could just copy this page, and all your staff could take that home with them. And just put that on their fridge, so if there's an emergency, whatnot, everybody can get a hold of each other. Page 20, evacuation map. You can put in your facilities map into this, and then I would have it hung around the building as well. Like, hey, I'm in this room, which way would I go? Kind of like also if you have a fire extinguisher, sometimes it helps to have little symbols kind of showing people how to pull the pin, squeeze, do the pass system, and kind of explain it out with pictures. And that kind of helps with some of the maybe a language barrier if you have the picture showing them how to use it. And that exists out there as well. You're already on it.
And also just knowing they're going to be probably stressed in that situation. I've had that in the past where I was trying to read it and my brain just could not read words. And I was like, how do I use this? It's so simple, but I had never used it before. So I was like, from now on, we'll practice in advance.
Of course, you have a tornado shelter map. You can insert your facility map in here and that be part of your plan. Like, hey, we'll go here. And then, of course, you can still post that same map.
And a tornado shelter is a specific designation. You can't
Yes.
just say that you're a tornado shelter. It has to meet qualifications. So just something to
I mean,
think
now,
about.
if you have an actual tornado shelter, yeah, you can say you have it.
Yes.
But remember, if you say you have it, it's just like if you build it, they will come. Somebody's gonna have to open the door and let people in and be responsible for that. So just be aware, and there's legalities around that.
How do you know, who determines if you are a tornado shelter or you can't be a tornado shelter?
There's ratings for that, so it's an actual construction. It is a hardened space that is rated for, name the EF, and you can get it all the way up.
So who
And is that through
determines-
FEMA?
Who determines that?
There is a list of contractors that have been pre-approved that will build it to standard. FEMA has it on their website, and the state should have something on theirs as well. I know they used to, because when we were doing the Safe Room grants, they had a list of people that would build it to the qualifications and specs. But you can definitely easy go there. FEMA will tell you what they expect for it to be rated and classified as an actual tornado shelter.
Okay, if there's people in our library, we can, like, if the map, we can tell them where to go. Go
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yes. So, this is our shelter. It's not a community tornado shelter. And of course, fire extinguisher map.
Yeah.
It's good to, know where they are. And then because we all like forms, damage record forms. So this is a pretty basic, and you can adjust it to what you need. But this is something that should be considered, especially when you start dealing with insurance companies or different losses of collections, etc. Got to write it all down.
And something you were talking about is another reason to work through emergency management, aside from, making sure you're not being scammed and all that stuff. If you're wanting to be reimbursed by FEMA, you have to work with your emergency management. You will not be reimbursed otherwise. So just something to think about.
So if we are using your facility, especially as like a resource center, all your hours count towards reimbursement during a disaster. And that would help us when we apply for reimbursement. So you, in theory, you kept the doors open, the lights open. We would have a mechanism, if you record everything, all your hours, staff hours, etc., we could then apply that and be able to get money back to the library for what they put out. So. Page 24, we get back into the first aid kit list. So there's the list.
Can you have Tylenol giving out, really, our insurance is such a area of giving out medications, having it available to the public.
I have Tylenol in here, and I know people have ibuprofen as well. So again,
Just check.
yeah, it would be good to know because.
And you said it was your insurance?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if the insurance company's telling you no, they kind of run things. So yeah, just don't put the Tylenol in.
Yeah. A lot of times when you buy the pre-made kits, they have it in there. I have to go
Yes.
through and take that out.
Was that for public facing or for staff also?
Both.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting. Page 25 gets into a common first aid kit, just real basic stuff, and that's, you'll see I have ibuprofen in there. So if you can't have it, just take that out. Page 26 gets into your media information, especially regarding a library closure. So there could be, you think about the latchkey kids, that's where they go. If school's closed, inclement weather, blizzard, etc., making sure that the kids know, families know, everybody knows, library's closed, don't stay home, like don't come here, it's not open. And of course, page 27, bomb threat checklist. Page 28, your insurance policy. And then 29, if you have a contract for disaster recovery service, because there are entities you can contract with. So basically just one-stop shop, everything you need.
Another thing to consider in this is if you lose water to your facility, what do you do then? Because if you lose water, you can't have public restrooms, you have to close down after a certain point.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's even, a typical day too. Like,
Yeah.
even if you're not an emergency, you need to have public restrooms, yeah.
One thing we face was intermittent power.
Yeah,
Ooh.
We have power fluctuating, it'll fry your computers, so
Yeah.
what to do with that happens as well.
yeah,
Yeah, that'd be a good one. Yeah, add that in for your facility.
yeah. And that's good training in advance, because that could be an expensive mistake if a staff member was trying to be helpful and then, yeah.
Yeah, at least our staff would see things flashing and like, the whole building didn't lose power or anything, but it was,
Huh.
and it was just, it could have potentially frying off our computers, so.
Yeah.
Because of that, computers do not like intermittent power.
But that's a good point. I mean, it could be that your emergency is an electrical issue that's just happening to your building.
So, continuity of operations plan, your COOP. We kind of streamlined this down. Once you fill it out, it could add a couple extra pages, especially depending on what it really takes for you to get your facility back online. Everybody's going to be a little different. This is just a really good starting point for you. As you see with the contents, why do you have this plan? Introduction, purpose, always got to have it. Library overview. And what's your core mission? Who's your incident management team? What are your essential functions and critical operations? On page 5, list everything out. And in the template, it actually has a drop-down menu. So you can select what you need.
And, I know it's been a couple years, but if you were in your libraries, during COVID and you're like, what were the things you needed for your community to have? Those are your essential functions. So if you can think back to what were those essential functions, you can kind of start there. I'm sure you've probably have it updated, but the things that if you had to go bare bones, what are the things that you absolutely need? Ideally everything, and that would be the goal, but start there and branch out.
And then, of course, you have to have orders of succession. So who's going to take over if, director's incapacitated in some fashion or also impacted by the incident. That's another thing that should be taken into account and considered with all your planning. How much staff in reality is going to be impacted? Who's going to, in reality, be able to come in and not also be just coming in because they need services as well? And then, of course, alternate facilities. Got to have option B and sometimes C. Just depends on how big you are and what you need. And continuity of communications, vital record management, human resources, and of course, testing and training this continuity of operations plan. Like, get up and walk out the door with your toys and go set up your alternate facility. Test that out. See if how you operate actually works. And of course, devolution, transfer critical functions to an alternate staff or facility. So in the event that most of your staff are incapacitated due to a large disaster, or you have the facility's there, but you don't have the people to run it. Do you have somebody else in your community from a library from the next town that maybe not impacted and has the staff? Can they come in and run your library and keep that open for your community? And that's another one to get in writing.
Yes, and that, like we talked about with that delegation of authority, they may have the authority to check items out to patrons, but they don't have, legal authority. Like the board is still running the library. The director still has,
Yes.
High level authority over certain decisions. So just kind of making that clear who has, maybe in a continuity of operations, that has been passed on because the director may never be able to take the mantle again for whatever reason. Things like that, you would have that. But just making sure the delegation of authority is very clear.
Yes. All right. Pretty cut and dry, but of course, as you build it out, it should expand. All right. Templates for MOU and MOA. These have been designed specific for the library, and a lot went into this from even thinking about and looking at what the Red Cross, when they do MOUs and MOAs. So this has been developed from multiple resources, so any of the major players that you would be dealing with across the community, like emergency management, sheriff, Red Cross, if they came in, this is what people would be looking at. And of course, these are templates. Run everything through your own legal and what you actually need, so you can edit these as you see fit. Just letting you know where this actually came from and the research that went into it. So pretty straightforward with an MOU, library name. The other entity, it could be a government entity, could be one of those partners that you have with the daycare center. And you're over here like, hey, I'm willing to be a resource center, a volunteer reception center, a family assistance center, or other. And other can be specified later on through here, like, then you can say, like, this is what I would be willing to do with my facility to support X, Y, and Z in the community during an incident. So, roles and responsibilities, you can change those to whatever you need. They're pretty basic. Activation protocol, describe the process for activating services. How are you getting that phone call? How is this moving forward? Are you getting a phone call from the director of the child care center and be like, hey, I want to activate this? So you just put it in writing how everything kicks off. Funding and resource allocation, if applicable. Just clarify whether the agreement involves funding, cost sharing, or in-kind contributions. And of course, how information sharing, confidentiality, there could be some HIPAA that strolls through, so just be cognizant of that. So, term and termination, good start and end date, how amendments work, miscellaneous, should be pretty straightforward. But again, definitely before you enter into stuff, double check with legal. And a memorandum of agreement done in the same fashion, but it dives in a little bit more with some of the sections like term and termination, liability, and indemnification, and how dispute resolution is solved. So just some of the more legalese part, because again, this is the legally binding section. Any questions or concerns? No, we just threw 3 templates at you, pretty quick order.
I don't have a question or concern, but I want to tell you how beneficial this is. We are putting a committee together at the Basner Library to look at our plan, and this is really wonderful to have a foundation here of examples and a template. So thank you so much for doing that.
Well, good. No, I'm glad. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's one of those, and as we're going to jump into and wrap this up for everybody, because I think we're getting close to lunchtime.
I know.
So, some notes.
So the library's role in resilience, leveraging your assets to support your community in crisis. We talked about that today. Building partnerships, enhancing preparedness in your recovery efforts. Libraries are the cornerstones of resilience with unique assets and those partnerships to go along with them. Your library can save lives and rebuild communities. It also saves yourself, some heartache and also funding, if you're not having to rebuild if you've planned ahead in those situations. But what is one step you'll take within 30 days to start this process? And it sounds like you guys are already on board to get started with your community. But what do you guys have plans for? Even if it's just looking at what you have currently, where are you in your process? But do you have any action plans that popped up that you thought I could maybe do this within the next month? Just this first step.
Well, I'd like to go over with my board and show them what this all is.
Mhm.
And maybe talk with my my staff and see who would like to be responsible for which thing, and maybe the board too, and go down and like that, I can do
Yeah.
for 30 days.
Kate in Seneca said she's gonna check with the city to see what plans they have in place.
It'd be good to know. They might be already volunteered for things.
Yeah. Also, you could just be plugging into a larger puzzle that is already set up, and so like you wouldn't have to be duplicating your efforts that were already there, so.
Exactly. So in closing, I believe together we can make libraries the heart of community resilience, not only for your community, but in a larger whole, in a regional, having you all as a cornerstone, and those communities being more resilient from a regional asset and doing even mutual aid. It's huge. Thank you.
And I'll just leave that up if you guys need any contact information, but
Are you
Please.
sending the slides out later?
yeah, we can do that. Is that?
Yeah.
you fine to- Yeah, we can share, we'll share those slides out.
Just
The templates are already available online, but we'll share the slides and then we can share the recording. I know that it'll probably be on our learning portion of, what is it, Aspen? But maybe also the regional website. We'll see where that'll end up, but it'll be posted online